Welcome, funeral directors and cremation providers. I'm Jason Engler from UPD Urns, and I'm happy to come to you today to share with you 5 keys to better serving your customers and your families choosing cremation. This is going to be a very informative hour that we spend together, and during this time, we're going to go through 5 important keys and simple suggestions that will show you these valuable tools that you can apply to following your cremation product program and making it the most successful ever. Today we're going to ask you some simple questions, and we're going to come up with these responses, and we're going to teach you how to be more effective as cremation providers as well. So are you having trouble merchandising cremation products? Are you having urns that sit on your shelves collecting dust that aren't really selling? Are you losing urn and keepsake sales to online retailers, our frenemies, the online retailers? Well, if so, I'm going to provide you these 5 techniques today, these 5 keys to better taking care of your cremation families. We're going to talk about leadership, where you can lead families to the selection of an urn of value. We'll talk about your assortment, making the most of your urn selection area. We will talk about knowledge, enhancing your urn product knowledge. We'll talk about retention, where you're keeping the urn sale in your hands, even if the urn is purchased online. We're also going to talk about profitability, which is increasing satisfaction of the families that you serve. Now, some speakers will give you advice on how to offer services and how to offer personalized services to families for cremation. This is truly one of the most important facets of taking care of families who choose cremation. But I'm not going to focus on that today. I feel like, as death care professionals, that being the most paramount thing in our profession, I really think that should be like breathing for us. So I'm going to talk about today the other side of that, and that is products and the importance that products play in better serving cremation families. So during this time too, we're going to focus, as I said, on bettering your arrangers, your funeral directors, your associates to better take care of these families. So all of the people who come in contact with cremation families really need to be comfortable with the arrangement process with cremation families. Really, truly, I don't care how old school or how new school a funeral director is, their opinions go out the window when it comes time to take care of cremation families. Every family, whether they choose the minimum or the maximum, is a priority in your funeral home. They've called on your funeral home because they trust you to guide them through the process. So I think it's very important that we really truly understand that as well. Let's start today. I want to talk about some statistics, and these are some very important numbers that we're going to talk about. So the Cremation Association of North America every year releases the annual statistics around June for the prior year. Now, these statistics tell all sorts of stories. One of these stories is that cremation providers are the vehicles for information and encouragement of becoming better servants of their communities. So let's take a look at these most recent statistics as of the 2019 numbers released last year in 2020. In 2019, 54.6% of deaths in America, in the United States, resulted in cremation. That's 54.6%. 61% will choose cremation by the year 2024. That's just a few years away. 61% of deaths will result in cremation. That means that of every 10 families that are served, 6 of those families will be choosing cremation. For many years, funeral professionals have ignored and even fought the cremation movement, the increasing cremation rate. And the fact is that cremation is no longer an alternative. Cremation is now the tradition. It may not be above 50% in your community, but nationwide it is. And this is the new tradition and the direction that so many families are choosing to take the care of their loved ones. It is the leading method of disposition in the United States. It's important for you to know that as a death care professional, you cannot influence this change in consumer choices. But what you can influence is how your firm reacts to the change. The common argument is that cremation takes away from casket sales, thus removing a primary source of income for funeral homes. This is so easily offset considerably with a balance of personalization of services and personalization of cremation merchandise. It's also important to make sure that you team with a supplier that offers low cost with high value to ensure your success. Personalization is a very important part of not only what we do at UPD Urns, but also what you do as funeral professionals. And I really can understand and appreciate this aspect of caring for cremation families. Now, I have found that it is a good idea to appoint a specialist. It's very helpful if your firm will appoint a person on your staff that can be your firm's cremation specialist. Now, this person usually takes an initiative in taking care of cremation families, and a lot of times this person will take an interest in cremation urns and merchandise. They have more initiative when it comes to cremation products and trying new things and different things. So make this person your firm's expert. The primary purchaser, the selector of cremation products, the idea generator for the cremation selection area. All of these are so important, and it's an easy way to encourage that your professionals in your funeral home are encouraged to do the things that they are good at. Now let's talk for a minute about some psychological things and some practical things as well. Why are urns important? Well, urns are so important because their aesthetic tends to stick around a bit longer than caskets. Caskets are typically put away out of sight. They're buried, they're placed in crypts. They're not on display for very long. Urns, however, are often placed in niches with glass fronts. They're also taken home to be kept for some time before some sort of final disposition. Also, keepsakes. Keepsakes are so popular with regard to families choosing cremation. Keepsakes are worn like jewelry, and other keepsakes are kept in a special place. So they are a part of the daily activities of a family who chooses cremation. We can go into an entire part of the importance of permanent disposition of cremated remains, and we'll do that in some other video some other time, because today we're going to focus more on the importance of keeping these products in front of families and making sure that they are offered in a high class fashion. So to go from a practical standpoint, why are urns important? Well, for one, they securely contain the cremated remains of a deceased person. These are human remains. So it's important that they be treated with dignity, with respect, and with security as well. They also continue to encourage the respectful care of the dead. And guess what? As a funeral and cremation professional, this keeps you relevant in your community because you are now the caretakers of the dead, and you as providers of this type of merchandise continue to care for the dead. That's so important and cannot be overlooked. From a truly an emotional standpoint, urns offer a step toward healing because they are an important part of that process. There's some closure there. And along with that, they allow for personalization. One of the top reasons that families choose cremation is because of the range of options that are available to them. So it's important that you understand that you can do more personalization with urns than you can with a casket. Also, they encourage not doing nothing. Now, I know that sounds like a double negative, and it kind of is, but think about that. Encouraging not doing nothing. So from that emotional standpoint, they are that step toward healing for families. According to a study several years ago, that reason that families choose cremation is because of the personalization that is available with that. So that is so important for us to convey to families who are choosing cremation. So offering a balanced selection of cremation products will certainly ensure and it will allow your firm to remain relevant to the consumer in fulfilling their desire for some sort of meaningful options, some sort of personalization of their services and merchandise. Now, for options for offering cremation urns and keepsakes, we have the physical selection or display area. We have printed or static PDF catalogs, and we also offer e-commerce platforms that are available for funeral homes to offer products through their funeral home's website. Let's talk about for a minute the physical selection and display area. There are a few selections in the arrangement process that are more personal than urns and keepsakes to hold cremated remains. This selection process can be so moving for a family that gives them resolve to work through their grief and also inspires them to plan meaningful services as well. Now, as I mentioned before, urns tend to be in front of families for longer than caskets, which tend to be put away out of sight. Keepsakes are meant to be kept and treasured for lifetimes and even for generations. For this reason, there is nothing like a physical selection area where a family can see, touch, and experience the item that will be a permanent memorial for their loved one. And when talking about printed or static PDF catalogs, the selection room space may not always be available in a funeral home or cremation provider, especially if a firm serves fewer cremation families. So there are times that printed catalog can truly come in handy during the arrangement conference. This is also true if the family has a difficult time deciding on a particular cremation product or deciding on a selection during the conference, or if they just simply need more time to think on it. Now, in my opinion, the printed catalog should be the last effort in offering cremation products to families. This can prevent any type of issues with availability, color confusion, and the like. It can also keep the family from experiencing the frustration of having to start over in the process if an item for some reason is not available to them. In e-commerce platforms, I'm not sure about you, but I have this complicated and even frenemy relationship with online retailers. I mean, who doesn't love when their Amazon delivery dings on their phone that their delivery has been made? Who doesn't love the subscriptions that Amazon offers? And if you've used them, you know that joy and that convenience that comes with using an online retailer. Now, unfortunately for me, this is a double-edged sword in the funeral profession. There's so many options to purchase urns online. They're everywhere. They're all over the market. Whether it's Amazon or Walmart or one of the other companies that sells direct to the public, our competition has gone from being the funeral home or cremation provider down the street to being these online retailers. So in response to this, one of the most modern and innovative ways to offer cremation products is through an e-commerce platform that is linked through the funeral home's website. This option is not necessarily a replacement for your in-person selection area, unless your business model reflects primarily virtual arrangements. Instead, it is intended to appeal to online shoppers who seek information prior to or after the arrangement conference and interaction with the cremation provider. Now, the value of offering cremation products on your website through an e-commerce platform is that you remain the resource for your families. Again, that relevance and importance for your families. Now, this is far more beneficial than having a static catalog on your website, or even many times having a merchandise page where products are just simply shown, because the families you serve can complete a transaction and purchase on the e-commerce website. This is the modern way. The modern consumer is an information seeker, and most are savvy with online purchases. So this is a win-win, especially for the cremation provider. Cremation products should be offered and displayed in a dignified manner that is up to par with the retail experiences to which consumers are accustomed to in other areas of commerce. Segregation of the merchandise is the ideal. Avoid placement, especially with full-size caskets. I highly recommend a combined cremation, arrangement, and selection area. As an example, at a firm where I served in the South, I created an area just like this. This area specifically was for cremation arrangements, and it intentionally positioned the family facing toward all of our cremation offerings so that the family could begin their process of selecting an item and urn of value. Now, some don't agree with this. Some think that this could be a negative connotation for families, but I will tell you that post-service survey satisfaction was increased with these families. And additionally, it generated as much as a 60% increase in the selection of an urn of value. Now, when the family was seated in the special area by the funeral director or another staff member, it was almost always true that the family was not in their seat upon return from the greeter taking leave to gather paperwork or that sort of thing. After the greeter left, the family felt free to browse, and they were already beginning a meaningful merchandise selection. Any questions about cremation merchandise were always answered at this time. Now, I found also that this time often raised the important questions regarding services offered, so it was an easy segue to inform of these services. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of combined arrangement and selection areas. This arrangement room is in a very historic facility and formerly served as the facility's casket selection room. Urns are displayed in cube displays, which are very modern and evoke the feeling of a columbarium. Price cards are clear and also very modern. Windows bring in natural light, and family amenities such as snacks and drinks bring additional comfort to grieving families. This modern arrangement room features unique furniture that is harmonious with the overall decor of the funeral home in which it is used. Wood shelves are used to display cremation products. Bright natural light makes the space inviting and comfortable for families. In the selection area, perfection should be what we strive for. Excellence is so important. It should be considered that the average cremation consumer is generally an information seeker. Thus, all of your signage and pricing should be clear, detailed, and accurate. Be sure that you are not providing prices on the back of your business card, not handwritten, but provide professionally printed pricing information. If a family is presented with a retail grade selection area, they will notice, and in return, will appreciate the opportunity to view your firm's products, as well as receive the information they need to make a comfortable decision. Additionally, all urns should be within physical reach. As I mentioned before, so many families have a meaningful time in selecting a cremation urn, so it's important that they can experience the weight and the size of the urn. Encourage that they are able to touch it and feel the smoothness or the shape of the urn. Additionally, for security, I suggest that jewelry and merchandise that are keepsakes and easy to walk away, I suggest these items be behind lock and key. This also shows additional value to the keepsake item. When creating your display, you should certainly avoid a few things for your selection room. Number one, let's avoid scratch and dent urns. And number two, also urns with personalization errors. For scratch and dent urns, you do not want something like that being displayed because you don't want to diminish the value that cremation products can bring to families. I highly suggest that you avoid these items because they do diminish value. Urns with personalization errors are also important to avoid. for the simple reason that anything that has been engraved with somebody else's name should always be some sort of sample name. If it is an actual person, living or deceased, it can cause undue heartache and grief for an individual should they happen to recognize the name. I also suggest avoiding displaying personalized urns. Unless you are very near your supplier and can easily get these products very quickly, I would avoid displaying these in the instance that you need to use the product that you have on your shelf. Also, avoid displaying urns that are not made to be urns. Remember that when you give a family an urn, when you release an urn to a family with cremated remains, you are taking the responsibility that you have cared for these remains and that you are giving these remains to the family in a container that is secure. So avoid urns that are from decorative stores and the like. When offering a variety of cremation products, it's important that you decide what type of urns your funeral home offers in your selection area. You should always conduct some thorough research. Now, I don't simply suggest looking at your past sales data. Instead, think about asking an extremely important question if you don't ask it already. Ask each family choosing cremation, what do you intend to do with your loved one's cremated remains? Keep a record of the responses to this on your information sheet and put all of these in a spreadsheet and keep track of them so that you know what your families in your area are doing. This will guide the selection process and the creation of your cremation selection area. The urns displayed should reflect the results that you find in this research. So here are some suggestions for assortment based on the types of disposition of cremated remains that may be popular in your area. If from your research most families choose burial or a closed front niche, I suggest the offering of cultured marble urns, metal urns, wood urns, and of course, having a variety and selection of urn vaults on hand is important as well. These can be truly helpful for families and it gives them direction on making choices as well. Now, if scattering is the preference of the families in your area, obviously carry a large selection of scattering urns that are meant to be used for that purpose. Also, biodegradable urns are very common as well for families choosing scattering. You could also offer dual-purpose urns. Dual-purpose urns like memory chests can be used for services, and then the cremated remains could be scattered from that container. From there, the container can then be kept as a keepsake to hold photographs or treasured mementos of a loved one. If most families in your area choose home retention or a glass-fronted niche, I suggest offering more decorative urns and artistic urns, and then also being sure that you have the ability to have urns personalized and sent to your funeral home in a timely manner. Now, if families in your area tend to be undecided on what they'll do with the cremated remains, remain the expert by giving inspiration. Find out what's available in your area. Find out the different options that could be used in your area and offer your cremation products around those local options. It does not hurt to encourage families to make a meaningful choice with this regard. Now, a few other things here. An increasing number of churches have columbarium niches available for their members. Now, often these churches will offer urns, or they'll have a specific urn that will only fit in the niches. I suggest your funeral home offers a similar urn if you are able to get it. Offer urns also, and be sure that these urns fit in the columbaria. Research sizes, requirements, and offer appropriate urns for those families priced competitively with the church. You might end up with an urn sale where you expected not to have one. When considering product assortment, it's important that you create your selection room around the families that you serve. I challenge you to take the time to do the research. It will keep you from wasting money on urns that sit unsold, collecting dust on shelves. This is where a good supplier partner comes in handy. We're crucial to understanding and working with a firm's cremation specialist so that your cremation selection space can be monitored and adjusted so that it can truly be valuable for the families that you serve and especially for you and your profitability. A well-curated urn and keepsake selection always increases revenue for your funeral home, but especially satisfaction for the families that you serve. And it makes all the difference in the world. When considering the number of cremation urns and keepsakes to be displayed, I've often found that using about half as many urns displayed as there are cremations works very well for most firms. For example, if a firm serves 50 cremation families in a year, approximately 20 to 25 urns should be displayed. This formula should only be altered in the case of a high cremation volume firm, which is more than 100 cremations per year, or in the case of a low cremation volume firm that does less than 10 cremation families services in a year. In the case of a high volume firm, if the firm's cremation specialist feels that there's a need for more than 50 urns, discretion should be used when displaying this large of a number of urns. Too large a selection can obviously overwhelm a family. In the case of a low volume firm, I suggest that you display at least 8 to 10 urns so that a good variety is offered in your selection area. There is a common misconception in funeral service that retail pricing is cost multiplied by 2. In other words, if an item costs $80 wholesale, then the retail price should be $160. This is simply not true because many funeral professionals team with suppliers that offer low-cost items. So it's not always necessary to price items this way. In fact, urns especially should be priced on perceived value regardless of their wholesale cost. Urns have a much different aesthetic, and there's no rule stating that a certain amount has to be charged for the urn. Likewise, there could be 3 urns that have the same wholesale cost, but one or the other is higher in look than the others as well. So price urns based on perceived value. You can also price urns based on the type of disposition that they offer or their suitability for a certain type of disposition as well.
While we're on the discussion of product assortment, I want to talk about the importance of creating a tiered urn program and giving your products clear differentiation based on their value, including their origin, material, craftsmanship, finish, color, texture, etc. Differentiating your offerings in a good, better, best format will give clearer definition based on this criteria and will allow your families to make their choices based on the value of the urns in your urn program. When creating this thought, you can keep the kite in mind. No, that's not an acronym. I mean, think of the actual shape of a kite. The kite shape is a quadrilateral shape whose top portion is smaller than its bottom portion. Take a look at the example I've given here and let the kite be your guide. Following the shape of the kite, the vertical represents the price and value of an item, where the horizontal represents the breadth of the assortment. Building your product assortment using this method will help to easily give tiered pricing for the products you offer. In the example, I have products in the best category listed above $295. The better category has urns that range from $145 to $295, and the good category has urns that are under $145. Obviously, you can adjust the pricing to fit your funeral home or cremation provider markup structure. The breadth of your assortment is shown in the broadest width of the kite. The better category is where most families will select, so this represents the largest number of offerings. Again, in this middle tier where most families will make their selection, so still following the shape of the kite, this category has the most offerings and the most price ranges. Let's take a look at what this could look like with a particular urn assortment. This assortment assumes a complete variety of 21 urns is offered. In the best tier, we have genuine pewter, raku ceramic, and natural hardwood with inlaid roses. All of these urns are made in North America, and so these products have particular value in their materials, workmanship, their artistic eye appeal, and the fact that they are made in North America makes a lot of difference to a lot of families. Therefore, their value is higher, and they are in the best category. In the better tier, wood, brass, and ceramic urns are offered with a much broader range of finishes, colors, and textures. Again, each level gives value to its retail price. Most families are going to select in this category, so it's important to have your broadest selection here in your median price range. In this range, you see metal urns and wood urns. Each one has its own unique characteristics that give it more value than the one below. For instance, in the $195 range, we have a brass urn and we also have an aluminum urn. In the $245 range, we have wood urns that have embellishment or have unique features. The wood urns in the $195 range don't have these same options available. In the $295 range, we have brass urns that have unique finishes and also engraved accents. Also, we have the mother of pearl urn. The mother of pearl urn is a solid brass urn with inlaid mother of pearl around the band. We also offer urns in hardwood that have a better and clearer differentiation than the urns below. Specifically, we have the Life Treasured urn, which offers maximum personalization for families. In the good tier, we have the more minimal offerings with the simpler designs and simpler finishes. Again, simple wood urns, simple metal urns, flat finishes, and simple brushed silver finishes make these urns obvious that they are in the good section. Again, these are still urns of value. However, they don't have the same eye appeal or perceived value as the urns in the better and best tier. Obviously, too, the minimum temporary container brings up the tail of the kite as the most minimal offering. In each tier, there is clear progression and differentiation of material, craftsmanship, finish, color, texture, etc., from the tier below it. This creates a complete assortment and gives value to each of the urns in each of the categories. Now, something else that I truly want to point out and make clear, and something I want to remind you of that we mentioned before, is that these urns are priced based on their value, not based on their cost. For instance, in the better tier, the selections in each of the price tiers, the $195 range, the $245 range, and the $295 range, all have urns that are from $39 to $79 in cost. Again, their difference is on their value. So these urns are given a retail price based on their value and not on their cost. If you have a physical display area, as I've suggested before, it's helpful for families if you arrange your assortment in a similar manner, giving a guidance of good, better, and best in their visual display.
When merchandising your cremation display area, it's important to consider all of the ways that your families will select products. With consideration of a physical display area, much like I'm standing in now, it's important to display your products in a good, better, best format. In doing so, you're allowing a clear differentiation in your price points on your price list. For instance, if you see on the lower shelf here, we have the better selection. That is a brass urn, simpler style, that has the 3 lines. It's in a pewter finish. In the midsection, where we have our best items, we have a higher end, heavier cast brass item that has a solid, smooth finish all the way around. Again, though, in the nickel or pewter finish. On the top shelf, which is the good category, we have the minimum aluminum cremation urn. Again, we're creating a clear, good, better, best strategy in our display, but also in our merchandising. Let's talk for a minute about guiding the urn selection process. Would you assume that a burial family wants the most inexpensive container for the body that you offer? Absolutely not. Then why would you make that assumption with cremation families? Every family, whether they are choosing to bury an urn, keep, or even scatter cremated remains, should be given the opportunity to make a selection from your firm's cremation selection area. Never ask a family if they want to purchase an urn. Burial families are not asked if they want to purchase a casket, so every family should be given that opportunity and taken to the urn selection area. It's my belief that the free or gratis temporary cremation container, the black plastic box, should be eliminated completely, with the exception of the minimum cardboard offering. Not only will eliminating the plastic container be helpful for the environment, but it's also going to be helpful for revenue for your funeral home. If your firm is adamant about providing the plastic box, then give it a price. Add it to your urn selection area. This gives value even to the temporary urn. And if you see enough value in giving it to a family, then there will be value in selling it as well. I also suggest displaying the minimum cardboard offering. That way families are aware of what they'll get should they not choose an urn that you have displayed. Now, this is not about guilting a family into purchasing an urn. Instead, this is about providing a secure and safe, permanent container for the cremated remains, regardless of the final disposition of the remains. If the selection is the very minimum, then at least it is their choice and they have made the selection. Also, I encourage that you allow the urns to be within physical reach so families may touch and feel the urn. They need to experience weight, size, and texture. If the family seems apprehensive about handling the urn, make sure they realize that it's all right for them to do so. I even suggest for the funeral director to pick up the urn and offer to hand it to a family. Now, don't force it on them, obviously, but do make clear that they're making a personal choice, a personal selection, and that they need to be comfortable with the item that they select. How many times have you been in your local grocery store or department store and you've been frustrated because the associate had no idea the specific details of what they were selling? And how many times have you been refreshed when you go to one of those same stores and you talk to an associate who cares about the items that they are offering and gives you suggestions on how to use them? That is true customer service, and that is true product knowledge. Luckily, in grocery stores and in department stores, typically there are labels on these items, but the same isn't true in funeral service. These items don't come with labels. So it's so important that funeral professionals, cremation providers, educate the family on the products that are being offered. Let me give you a little bit of an example. Of your funeral directors, which ones could tell a family what the TSA is and what they will allow for carrying cremated remains on board an airplane? More importantly, do they know what the TSA is? In this day, with family members flying all over the United States, I found that so many will pick up cremated remains and will carry them on board an aircraft. Now, this information is readily available on the TSA website, which, by the way, is tsa.gov. It's in the For Travelers section, and follow the air travel and special item links. Now, how impressive would it be for your funeral professionals to know that? For families to leave with that information rather than say, let me go look that up. Now, this may not seem like a big deal to you, but when it's the little details such as this that help families be more confident with your funeral home. The TSA, by the way, is the Transportation Security Administration. It's the folks who, in blue at the gate when you're checking into the airport, who help you through security and examine your items before you board an airplane. By the way, they allow urns to be carried on board if it passes a quarter test. They could put a quarter underneath the item, underneath the urn, and if it's transparent through the X-ray process, then they're able to carry the urn on board. Back to what we were talking about. It's imperative that all staff that are in contact with family members during merchandise selection processes be completely knowledgeable of all of the items, the styles, materials, and suggested purposes of urns that are offered. Do they know the difference between brass and bronze? By the way, bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, where brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. Brass urns are most often imported, while most bronze is manufactured domestically, which is obviously reflected in the cost. But what about the difference in natural stone versus cultured stone? Natural stone is quarried stone, carved from a block of natural marble or granite, whereas cultured stone is a blend of natural stone, pigments, and resins. Natural stone urns display nicely at home or in glass front niches, and cultured stone is very suitable for burial because it's very strong and has intrinsic strength and value and durability. Funeral directors who meet with families should know that some urns are better suited for the different modes of disposition of cremated remains. Natural stone, cultured stone, metal, wood, biodegradable urns are all suitable if the family is going to bury the cremated remains. Now, if these urns are decorative, then these, along with glass, ceramic, and other artistic pieces, may be more suitable for display in the home or in a glass front niche. If a columbarium niche is the selected disposition, then obviously the urn's size becomes a factor as well. If a family is going to retain the cremated remains in their home, the weight of the urn is particularly important. Consider the person who will be caring for the urn, cleaning and dusting and that sort of thing, their ability to move it for these purposes. Urns that serve a dual purpose, like keepsake chests and decorative vase shapes, also biodegradable or water-soluble urns, may be appropriate for those who wish to scatter. In summary of this, it's important that each person who speaks with a family, it's important for them to have an accurate answer readily available should questions arise. Simple research will assist in finding the correct answers to many of the questions that are asked. This myriad of information will prove useful to each family in making an informed decision about their selection. It's unfortunate when a family walks away with no information and starts to seek it elsewhere. Or worse, they walk away with misinformation for an item which they have just spent several $100s in purchasing. The funeral professional should have as much information as possible with the family, from cleaning suggestions to breakability of the urn, but without overwhelming them, obviously. Let's talk for a minute about the importance of not doing nothing. I know that sounds like an odd statement, but hear me out. Helping families through the grieving process is one of the most important meanings of our profession. Think back on your life as a funeral professional and how that has been paramount in the things that you've done. Whether your firm targets families who want simple services or more elaborate services, the end is always the same for us. Compassionately helping families through the grieving process by caring for their deceased loved one. This is so important. It's important for us to know that cremation is just a step toward a permanent memorial for a loved one. Never, ever underestimate the encouragement that you can give and the influence you have on explaining the importance of services before and after cremation, the importance of having a plan for the cremated remains following the cremation, and also the importance of selecting an urn of value to securely contain the cremated remains of a loved one. That goes back to the simple question that you can ask during the arrangement conference. What do you intend to do with the cremated remains? Many would be amazed at the surprise on the part of the family that the funeral director is actually interested in what they're doing, and how this often opens their ears to advice and input from someone that cares about their plans. This should be as simple to funeral directors as explaining the importance of a casket or a cemetery resting place. It's important to know that the dead must go somewhere. So it's important for us to be able to have services, merchandise, and closure following both. The dead have to go somewhere. So why not, as caretakers of the dead, give options as to where that could be? Why not be the expert in your community on how that can be accomplished for families in your area? This is one of the most important plights and most important parts of funeral service for funeral professionals. This is what allows us to be relevant to the communities that we serve. I want to take a moment to thank you for spending time with me today and learning more about how you can offer cremation products to your families confidently and profitably, and also how you can make your families and give them a higher satisfaction in choosing the services and merchandise that you provide. I want to leave you with a thought in conclusion of our time together today. This is with regards to urns, that it is especially important for families to realize and come to terms with the fact that the cremation urn that they select is not just a piece of metal or marble or wood or other material. Rather, it is a sacred vessel that contains one of the greatest tributes to the physical remains of one whom they have loved. It seems often that this is discounted, especially with families choosing cremation. But make no mistake about it. A cremation urn serves the very same purpose that a casket does. And when cremation providers, too, realize this and convey this to the families that they serve, their firm will begin to see profits from the sale of cremation urns. This is a sacred vessel, and let's treat it as such. On behalf of UPD Urns, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and our time together today. Please feel free to contact me with any questions or comments you may have. And also, know that we're here to help guide you in the process of setting up your selection area and offering cremation products to your families. We want to earn your business, so we're here to help. Thank you.